Welcome back to another episode of Consciously Clueless. You're here because you want to learn about how to live a healthier life, how to live more sustainably, how to take your everyday actions and make them work for you and the planet. Sometimes it might feel like you've got this figured out, and other times you probably feel lost. That's why I'm here. Together, we will learn how to live happier, healthier lives without the need to be perfect, and always allowing space for a little cluelessness on this journey to living a more conscious life. Today on the podcast, I talked to Nicole Brecht. Nicole is the founder and executive director at Good Life Refuge. This conversation, Nicole gets really real about what it's like to open a refuge. Here we go. This podcast is supported by Who Gives a Crap. Who Gives a Crap is an eco-friendly toilet paper company that donates 50% of its profits to help ensure everyone has access to clean water and a toilet within our lifetime. Who Gives a Crap has donated almost $8 million to nonprofit organizations who help provide clean water and toilets all over the world. Who Gives a Crap is delivered straight to your door with carbon neutral delivery. I love that it comes that way. I don't have to think about it. It's an automatic subscription, and I want you to try it. You can check out Who Gives a Crap and get $10 off your first order over $54 with the code CARLY10. That's CARLY 10, or check out the link in the show notes. So I like asking people, where are you at right now? How are you feeling? Kind of if there was a spectrum from clueless to conscious in this moment on this day, how are you feeling right now?
Well, I can join the club of the clueless people, right? We're having some problems to solve here at the sanctuary, and I feel like I expanded everything I could think of to do so, and it's not coming back. I'm like, I don't know how to solve this one. So, yeah.
Feeling a little clueless.
Totally, appreciate that feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. It is very real. Well, you mentioned the rescue, so let's go right into that. You are the founder of Good Life Rescue where is it? In
Longmont,
Colorado?
Longmont.
Okay.
Yeah. So
and how did that happen? Let's talk about that journey.
Well, I always have been an animal lover since I'm very little, the kids bringing home like injured bunny, picking cats off the street and birds and all that fun stuff. And I think my mom was pretty supportive in these regards. And we had a ton of animals ourselves while I was growing up. And oh my God, it just didn't stop. Then I started. It got worse, going on vacation. I was like feeding the strays and all that fun stuff and making people uncomfortable while doing so. Bringing animals home from vacation and finding homes for them. And then when I came here to the US, I started digging into the rescue organizations itself a little bit more. Started volunteering at the Humane Society, mostly dogs and cats, and focus on dogs. Done a ton of rescue work in the dog rescue world myself. And at some point I was exposed to farm animals. And that kind of planted a seed to start my own farm animal sanctuary. And it took us a while to find the right property and all the things that we needed as a family ourselves. And once we found that in 2018, I pretty much got started right away and was diving in full blown, not knowing what I'm doing. And here we are close to 4 years later with 70 animals on site, 13 or 14 different species.
7?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That is a lot. So you said coming here to the US, where were you before that?
I'm from Europe, from Germany.
From Germany, okay.
And yeah, we relocated here to the US in 2005. So it's been quite a while that we've been here, and yeah.
What is the vegan scene in Germany like? Because I've talked to quite a few people from Europe and other places, but not Germany. And I'm wondering, like, what is that like? Is the rescue situation? What is that culture? in terms of this?
You know, rescue culture is very different. And, I haven't really been into the rescue scene myself. I
Mm-hmm.
started that in the US because
Right.
we have more like shelter situations, and that
Okay.
was very limiting and restricting in how much you can help. There are rescues out there as well, but I've never touched base with them. So I really don't know. The vegan
Mm-hmm.
seems kind of similar because I started being vegan here in the US. So I don't know how they are. But what I know is when I go back to Europe or to Germany, which doesn't happen too often, they have fascinating products where it's like, you need to bring these to the US. I think they
Interesting.
have, yeah, they have like great chocolate and like fake lunch meats. Well, now I have to
Mm-hmm.
say they're more European style, what I'm used to. But
Right.
it's like, I'm like, why can we not get a good lunch meat here in the US that's plant-based and really tastes well, right?
Mm-hmm.
While they have it in Europe and you can hardly taste the difference. Now, I, never was vegetarian. I was raised as a full-blown omnivore.
Mm-hmm.
So I do like the taste of meat.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I know there are people that totally don't like the taste of meat, but I do. And I do like my lunch meat. So I'm always happy when I find a substitute that gets fairly close to the taste of it. Um, the Impossible Burger makes me is a little scary because it's too
The
close, and I was like, I
first
could
time I
not.
had it, I was so freaked out. I had to ask the waiter if he was sure that he gave me the right meal. I was like, I'm so
Yes,
sorry. I'm not trying to be a jerk, but I haven't had meat in years and this is freaking me out.
yes, exactly. I have the same thing. I was like, somebody switch my patty, right? Because it's so scary close to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I feel like we have somewhat a different selection of plant-based foods, and for me, they taste more like it.
Mm-hmm.
Do love when I'm
Yeah.
back in Germany. It's like, okay, let's get this and this, and that's all I'm having
Oh,
for the
that
whole
sounds
time.
fun. Yeah, I interviewed someone in Ireland and I follow him on Instagram and the chocolates and the sweet treats that he shares. I mean, we've got some good stuff here, but it's like
Yeah.
astronomically better looking.
It does. I like white chocolate. I'm not a dark chocolate person, and I do love my milk chocolate. And I was like, I
Mm-hmm.
haven't really found in stores, I have to say,
Right, right.
good replacements. I found like one chocolate, the panda one, that I
Mm-hmm.
love because it's very close to milk chocolate and it has like all these fantastic flavors. But you have to order it online, and so I was like, I
Equal
like going in the
Exchange
store.
chocolate has like a coconut milk
Oh,
vegan
nice.
one now, and I actually think it is the most reminiscent of like milk chocolatey memories of Hershey bars that I have. I think it's the closest I've come, and I'm a chocolate hound, like sweet tooth galore. So that is when I
Yeah.
find something like that, I'm just like, yes, so
Yeah,
excited.
that's kind of me too. I'm like, oh, finally.
Yeah, it does feel like such a treat. So you said you went vegan once you had moved to the US. What was that journey like? Like what kind of prompted that shift in your life?
So my journey started way being old, I would say. Way being old. That sounds weird. So I didn't turn vegan right away when we moved to the US. Actually, I turned vegan when I was about 42.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason was because I started another sanctuary a while back, and working with these animals kind of pushed me to change my lifestyle. While I would say I always have been an animal lover, I didn't necessarily bring that love of animals to the plate, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. I
It does.
very, looking back now, I consciously choose not to get informed because, when I was watching documentaries about like animal transport, right?
Mm.
I was sitting there and crying because of the misery of the animals, but it didn't push me further, if that makes sense,
Yep,
to dive
totally.
into that topic. I just didn't want to know it, right?
I relate.
And I grew up in a you would say in American terms, in the meat and potato household.
Yep.
Well, I was never a huge meat eater because I didn't like necessarily some of the meats a lot. I did eat it. And
Mm-hmm.
actually, when we came to the US, I ate a lot more because it tasted so much better than in Europe, right? But when I started the other sanctuary, I came home one day, having my regular dinner, and I was like, wait a second, what are you doing here? Right? Here I was
Yeah.
tending to my chicken and trying to keep it alive and get it healthy. And then I had chicken breast for dinner, right? And once that relation was done, like that connection was made, I started looking into, right? And all it took was watching one video of the baby chickens being grinded. And I was like, I'm done. I can't continue this. And it has been, rookie journey, I would say, because I went cold turkey,
Yeah.
which was not necessarily the best way to do, but that was my way to do it. And I fell off the wagon a few times,
Mm-hmm.
cheated, right? And then I had to remind myself that I have to be compassionate with myself in regards, because
Yes.
I cannot expect what I cultivated over 42 years will just go away within, right? And the body needs time to adjust. And I have a lot of food related sensitivity. So I couldn't do a lot of the things,
Mm-hmm.
that made it easier for me. I'm gluten free and soy doesn't sit
Right.
well with me, and beans and lentils kind of eh. So it was a journey of learning what I can do well and what not. And, the
Right.
cooking was learning to cook, learning the labels. And, at the beginning, it was all about the food. And now it's like, okay, the cosmetics and shoes and
Yeah.
belts and clothing. And it can be really overwhelming, right? So it's like the baby steps and not trying to
Mm-hmm.
do too much at once. But, it's been 7 years and I don't regret it. I'm fairly happy that I'm not contributing to the suffering of animals in general. And, experience my or our animals on a daily basis. That is kind of
Mm.
what gives me the confidence that it's right for me what I'm doing, and they totally deserve to be here, because for me, none of my animals is much different than a dog or a cat that we keep as pets.
Yeah, when you see those videos of like cows playing with a ball like a dog does, or the pigs, all those things where you just start to make those connections. And that cognitive dissonance, that tricking ourself is so real and so common, I think, when you grow up in a society telling you that it's not wrong to do that, then we just keep wanting that narrative to be true, but it
Yeah.
can only kind of hold on for so long, I guess. I think it's so interesting that you started a sanctuary before going vegan. So, what was the sanctuary before?
It was, well, when we started, we had like two things that we wanted to combine, which was dog rescue, which was mine, right? And then the
Mm-hmm.
farmer perspective, which was the other founder's perspective.
Okay.
But we came to the conclusion very quickly that we would be spreading us too thin and we have to focus. And because there wasn't many farm animal sanctuaries in the area here, we decided we're doing the farm animals because
Got it.
there've been plenty of dog rescues out. So, and that was fine with me. We had in the back burner that we'll do the dogs at some point, right?
Yeah.
Because dogs and yeah, dogs are just my world, right? They still are. We have five.
Oh, wow. Fun.
Some of them from my time as being in dog rescue, right? But it was a great experience in a way that I was like, well, they deserve as much as being loved and taken
Right.
care of as any dog or cat or pet that we're having. And so, yeah, that was kind of where my focus completely shifted.
So, maybe I misunderstood. I thought you meant you'd started two rescues. Is that correct or no?
No, so the plan was that we're going to do dog rescue and the farm animals,
Got
right?
it. Right.
But while we're doing and getting started, we figured out it's too much. We can't do
Right.
both. We have to focus. And so we decided to focus on the farm animals because there are plenty of dog rescues out here,
Right.
right? So, and that was fine with me. And for a while, I had like in the back burner, we can always add, once we're settled and have everything, we can add the dog rescue part, but never got to it. And at some point, when I pulled out of that sanctuary, I was like, farm animal, it is because they need
Oh,
us.
interesting.
There's no place for them, there's no voice for them. And they deserve it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of pushed me really into the direction that I want to do my own farm animal sanctuary. And then, as I said, once we had the right property that was fitting all the bills, we started pretty much immediately doing the farm animals.
So how does that work? Do people call you up and say, I have this cow that broke loose, or what does that process look like? I mean, I'm sure it's everything.
It's different. For me, it always comes down to like not three part, but three different areas where animals come from. The owner surrenders are by far the most requests we get. So last week, for example, I got a request for 20 animals to take in. Mm-hmm. Woman is in a bad divorce, has to vacate her property, and she has 13 chickens, 6 sheep and 4 goats, right? And I was looking to place them with us. I had to decline because we're full and we've been full
I bet that's
forever.
hard. I bet
It
that's
is
so
super hard because you wonder what happens with the animals,
Right.
And then I was contacted by rescuer activists this week. We can help with 3 potbellies while most of them potentially are pregnant. And I was like, we're talking like 3 by 3 times 10, because they can have 10 to 16 piglets, right?
Oh my God, you have 30 pigs really quickly.
Yeah. Yes, and 3 goats, a family of goats, and mama is potentially pregnant. And I had to decline again, right? So there's a lot of, and these guys were from a hoarding case with an active investigation. So I always say mostly owner surrenders for us. Then you have the animals that come in through governmental intervention, which is not happening very often. We have some, but not a ton. And then we have the strays, while the strays are mostly within the bird population that we have because people just dump them left and right. So these are the 3 places where we get some, sometimes we get them through networking with other animal sanctuaries, because we always post when I'm full as like, hey, anybody has space?
Right.
To still help. But yeah, owner surrenders has by far.
So interesting to me that owner surrender is the most. So these are people that are having like hobby farms or animals just because they want animals and then they realize they can't. I mean, is it that kind of stuff?
Yeah, it's like people get sick, right? We have farmers that age and then they don't want to kill their animals, so they're looking for places. We have college kids that get chickens.
Oh my God. The last thing I wanted in college was a chicken.
Right.
in my apartment.
Yep. Or ducks, right? And then the ducks turn out to be not so cute anymore because they're really dirty, right? Ducks make a mess.
And they're loud.
And they're loud. I have once in a while, I have them in the house, when they're injured or whatever, and they flood your bathroom in no time. Seriously. I had like one of my adults in my bathroom, in my new bathroom, because my old one is in remodeling right now. And because she had an eye injury, and with the avian flu, we have like everybody locked up, and I can't give them the water. They can't swim like they usually would. So they have water buckets and stuff, but not their pools out because that floods the whole area. So I had her in my bathroom. And within 10 minutes, there was water everywhere. And it's not a tiny, not a tiny, tiny bathroom. It's not huge either, but I was like, how in the world do you manage to go from the bathtub 4.5 feet to the door? Right?
Well, it's like having
Wipe
a
my whole
kid.
bathroom up.
This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. Is there something interfering with your happiness or is preventing you from achieving your goals? By now, you all know that therapy is an important part of my own self-care. It has truly been a game changer in every aspect of my life, including achieving goals. BetterHelp is the largest online therapy platform worldwide. They are changing the way people get help with facing life's challenges by providing convenient, discreet, and affordable access to a licensed therapist. BetterHelp makes professional therapy available anytime, anywhere, through a computer, tablet, or smartphone. You can start communicating within 48 hours. It's not a crisis line, it's not self-help. It is professional therapy done securely online. And I have a special offer for Consciously Clueless listeners. Visit betterhelp.com/Carly and join the over 1 million people taking charge of their mental health with the help of an experienced professional. By using this code, you get 10% off your first month. That's betterhelp.com/CARLY. Take care of yourself today. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this podcast. This podcast is sponsored by TerraSeed. TerraSeed is on a mission to disrupt the vitamin industry, empower vegans, and reduce plastic waste in the world. They put everything plant-based people struggle to get in an all-inclusive, vegan, compostable package multivitamin that replenishes them and our planet every single day. Seriously, y'all, win, win, win. Even if you're not vegan, this vitamin will help you get those key nutrients that you need. I am so excited to share a discount code for your first purchase. Use code CARLY50 at checkout to get 50% off. Again, that's CARLY50 for 50% off your first purchase at terraseed.com. Don't forget this code so they know I sent you.
Oh yeah. So, they are a lot of work. They're filthy. They make a mess if you do it right. And then, we have people that I was like, I had a woman connect with me. She wanted to surrender two animals. I can't even remember what type. And she's like, they're just too much for me. It's just me. And I was like, we're just two people here and we have 70 animals and you telling me it's too much, right? So I think, people get animals on a whim and then they realize it's too much. And we have a lot of people that have, not a lot, but some people that lost their housing. And then, they had pig, right? A full-grown farm pig and go in foreclosure. And then they're like, what we're going to do? Don't want to kill it. We want to have the animal safe, right? But who can take a 750-pound pig, right? Oh, I know. We had a woman who had a goat in her apartment. Well, she got a goat gifted while she lived in her apartment, right?
Who are these people giving gifts of goats and buying ducks for apartments? Oh, no.
So it's just like, or the woman with the 20 animals, she was in a bad divorce, right? And lost her property. And that stuff happens frequently. They lost financial footing. And right now it happens quickly, right?
Right.
And then there are people that just don't want to care anymore. I had one chicken surrendered to me that had a prolapse, and the woman was like, I was tending to her, and I was like, how about bringing the chicken to the vet and doing it properly, right? And then she was like, I'm going on vacation. And everybody was like, that was a Facebook thing going on, and everybody was like, you need to surrender. And I was sitting there like, no, you need to bring it to a vet. If this would be a dog or a cat, you would go to the vet, right? But nobody would help that poor chicken. So I was like, I'll take her, bring her over. She was one of my first severe ones that we had. And, it's like we had to stop the laying eggs. We had to suture her for I think she had a suture in her cloaca for 3 months to keep
Oh my
everything in
gosh.
and let the body heal, right? We had her for about a year and a half, and she had we could not, after that she was fine, but we couldn't get a full grip on the reproductive damage that was done. So she
Oh,
passed away at some point because we couldn't fix it. But that's kind of, owner surrenders are pretty, I think with the birds is our highest intake rate, and then we have the pigs, the potbelly pigs, and then the goat.
wow.
People get them and then they're getting tired of it, or they don't lay eggs anymore and they don't want to pay for them, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, we're gonna surrender because they get the good feeling with it too. I did a good thing. I donated my chickens to sanctuary.
Oh,
Right.
wow.
So
Yeah. That's wild. So when you say like you have 70 animals and you're like, I had to turn down 2 requests this week alone because we're full, is that in your experience, is every rescue full? Like I think everyone I've talked to, I've ever heard say they're full. Is that
yeah,
common?
it is pretty much. Yeah. All the established ones are full. We have a network of farm sanctuary here for Colorado, and the newer ones are filling up. And from a rescue perspective, when you're new, you're eager to
Yeah.
help, right? And you're like, I have space, right? But you have to be really careful that you don't grow too fast too quickly, because it will hit you at some
Yeah.
point. We took in close to 30 animals last year, which was probably our biggest growth that we made, and it shows a lot. And it's like, I can't
During a
build up my
pandemic
staffing
too.
that quickly. Yeah, doing the staffing, because we don't have the funding. Now it's like, oh, we had $9,000 last year that we had to spend on hay. This year we have to spend $20,000. And I'm like, wow, how am I going to get the funding in? Because people don't like to pay for hay. It's not
Yeah.
exciting, right?
Yeah.
And it's all good in the moment, but you have to also have the foresight of calculating what does that mean for the next year, right?
Right.
And we're caretaker down right now. So it's like me back out doing chores, and it's really hard finding good people, right, in the caretaking area. So it's I'm telling some of these girls, I say girls, they're grown hardcore women, because not this is not for the faint-hearted.
I imagine
um
not.
but I'm like, pace yourself. I can only speak from my own experience. Pace yourself. If you don't
Yeah.
pace yourself, you're gonna pay for it. And
Yeah.
this life has impact. It impacts your family life. Can you go on vacation? Even if you have the funds, right? Can you go on vacation?
Mm.
Because who's gonna do all of this while you're gone? So,
Yeah.
or you have plans with your family on a Sunday afternoon, and boom, you have an emergency. Right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that we don't know when we go into it what it really means, right? And that's like, pace yourself is the best advice I can give anybody who starts a farm animal sanctuary or any rescue itself, because I think this is very common for pretty much every rescue, right? If you
Oh,
grow
I
too
can
fast too
imagine.
quickly, it can get hard.
And it would be so hard not to. It would be so hard to, like you said, like, I have the space. We're new. Like, I want to save the world. One come all.
Yep.
And it would be so hard not to do that. And you mentioned funding, which is something I'm always curious about with rescues, because it seems, and maybe, this is my experience in talking with others, but it feels like a lot of times when I hear about funding and rescues, it feels like people running rescues are always searching for funding. and making sure that that is still like year to year. Like it doesn't seem like anyone I've talked to has a solid foundation, and that seems so stressful. Has that been your experience?
I wouldn't necessarily say we're not having a solid foundation, but it's like
Okay.
as you grow, you need more, right?
Right.
And the matter of fact is that there is an abundance of need,
Right.
and it doesn't matter where that need comes from, but there is an abundance of need, but not an abundance of money that's freely given. And, as a farm animal sanctuary, we are in a niche, right? Because
Yeah.
not, dog and cat rescue, and they struggle too. Don't, get me wrong
Right.
about that. But they can adopt their animals out. So there is sometimes, not all the time, there's money coming back. There's
Right.
a revenue
Right.
stream. We don't adopt our animals out, so I don't have that revenue stream, right? So that is one difference. And then it's like you can never stop fundraising because your costs don't stop, right? The animals need to be fed no matter if I fundraise the money or not. The food has to come. If an
Right.
animal gets sick, for me the worst case scenario would be to have to wait until funding gets in to bring the animal to the vet, right? I was
Right.
like, that just does not sit well with me.
Right.
So we have different scenarios where we get money from. So we have some grant money, which is, again, not a lot because we're in a niche.
Yeah, I
Right.
imagine.
We have our private donors that donate once in a while. And then we have our monthly supporters, right?
Okay.
And the monthly supporters are what I consider my pillars because that's a steady income stream I'm having, right? That I can somewhat calculate. Of course, there are people that are chipping out and new ones coming in, right?
Right.
But it's like these are these three areas where money comes in, and we're working on slowly because I don't have staff much. I have two part-time, well, right now we're down to one part-time caretaker, and that's it, right? And everything else is done
70
by me.
animals.
Yes,
Oh, God.
is done by me and some of my board, right? And we have some great volunteers, but it's like two handful of people, and that's not enough to run an organization like you would run not that we're unprofessional. I want to say that right here. I think we're doing a damn good job with the resources we have available, right?
Yes.
But it's like in order to grow, in order to get all these things really nicely set up, you need staff. You
Yeah.
cannot rely on
You need
volunteers.
people power.
And yes, there is no money for that right now, right? But we are working on an education program, which slowly, because again, it's driven by a volunteer.
Yeah.
One person and me, where we're hoping we can implement at some point in 2023, 2024, an educational program that brings in some steady revenue as well as helps us foster and create a different mindset around animals within the younger population. So, we're trying to get the kids just more involved into here's a way to see these animals different. They're not food, right? They're not different. So, but in a smart way, right? Because this topic can be very off-putting, and so it has to be really well done. So, these are the revenue streams and incomes we have. And, unfortunately, we don't have anybody who's like, hey, here's $100,000 for you for the year, right?
And that'd be nice.
That would be fantastic. But, so you make do with what comes in. And for me, it's really important that the basic needs of our animals are met, meaning they get the food they need, they have housing, they have the medical care that they need, right? And everything else grows as we can. But, the struggle is real. I was just getting off my fundraising training before we hopped on the call, and it's like funding is stalling right now. We have our Hay
It
fundraiser
really
running,
is. Yeah.
right? I have $20,000 that need to come in, and we're at probably, I haven't checked the numbers, 1,500, right?
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, we have a long way to go, a lot more
Right.
to push, right?
Right.
Because the animals want to eat. It's not just the rescuing. People are excited about rescuing an animal, right? But it's not just that. You also need to feed them and make sure that they're healthy and fed.
Right. Yeah,
So,
absolutely. It sounds like so it's one of those things that sounds, and of course I'm saying this from the outside, you're the one doing the work, I'm just interviewing you, but it sounds like an experience that would be simultaneously so stressful and so rewarding at the same time.
you know, that is totally true. I think I don't have a background in nonprofit management,
Mm.
right? I have a marketing background and I
Oh,
worked in
interesting.
the vet clinic, so I have some medical background, but a nonprofit. And so the fundraising part was really foreign to me. And I did the best I could in the first year. And, it was okay. I spent a
Right.
lot of my own money in the first 2 years into the rescue. And last year we had a moment where we were pretty much with the back on the wall with one medical emergency. And I was like, and we're done. We can't do this
Oh,
way.
wow.
This is not how it's supposed to be. We have to have resources that we can recover from this and not
Right.
having to think about either I do this or I don't have food, right? It's like
Right.
this is not an option for us. This is not
Yeah.
how I'm going to run this organization. So in my desperation, I signed up for training, right?
In 2016, Mint Mobile was born because its founders thought that big wireless was, well, dumb. So they decided it was time to create a smarter wireless company, one that extends its middle finger to conventional truths while also pointing out where big wireless is letting people down. They're online only. You can buy plans that are 3-month, 6-month, 12-month, no contracts. Choose to stay as long as you want. There are no overages. There's no surprises. There's just no BS. And for someone who lives in a remote area like myself, I can attest to the fact that the service is great and I have truly had no problems and oftentimes is better than the big wireless companies I was with before. To find out more about how Mint Mobile can work for you, hit the link in the show notes so they know that I sent you.
Good.
Sometimes out of
Somebody's
those
done it,
terrifying
right?
moments comes a solution, I guess, right?
Yeah, and I love the team, and it was great. We tripled almost our donations in the last 3 months of
Wow.
last year. And I followed the script and it's not a script, but it was a plan that told you
Yeah.
exactly what to do, and that was exactly what I personally needed. And I followed them, and we were successful. So this year I signed up for the next round of training and, struggling a little bit more because it wasn't quite as structured.
Mm.
So there was a lot more leeway for me. And some of the things, got pushed back and I was like, I can't do this alone. So I had to postpone, which doesn't mean we're not doing it. It just means I'll
Right.
need to figure out how we're going to get it done. And, some I was like, I don't know, got it all right, have it done. And we're still not getting the funding in, but we have a buffer from last year. So I'm like, not too worried about it, but the buffer will dissipate very quickly, right? If we're not going to make sure there's money coming on a regular
Right.
basis. But yeah, there's, if I can't do it, I have to learn how, right? And we'll adjust and kind of find the ways. I'm working really hard on my donor relationships, which is sometimes not easy because I'm an introvert.
You
That's
have to just
ex-
go shake
ex-
hands
ex-
and Tell them how amazing the refuge is and how amazing you are. And sometimes that is so hard.
Yeah. So, but it's a fantastic experience when you get it, right? When you make the pitch. I had donors
Right.
out on Tuesday. And I was like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? It's like, I just do it. And so we were talking and I had them for lunch. And then at some point I was like, okay, let's go back to the sponsorship discussion. And, they gave me the money to support the one pig. And that was great. And the week before, I asked some of my other donors that I've known for a while. They've been here since the get-go and have given us every year. And I was like, okay, my hay campaign is coming up. Will you match it? This is the number I'm thinking. And they're like, yeah, we can do that. And then 5 minutes later, he's like, we can do this much. And I was like, yes.
Yeah.
So, this is where I was like, okay, it's working. I just need to get over my hesitation because I'm not a fundraiser. I don't like doing that, but I have a responsibility for my 70 animals and that's what they need. And, I'm asking for them and not for me. So that makes a difference, but it is rewarding when it pans out, right?
Yeah.
Or when you make a really good relationship.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I'm blown away by your what's the right word? Tenacity, I think, in talking about this and like in going after that. And just, it sounds like you have that mindset down where you can kind of reframe and be like, okay, this is for the animals. I'm asking this for them. I'm not asking for me. And that probably makes it a little easier in those moments to get through those like donor conversations. And sometimes those things can be so awkward.
It does. And, don't get me wrong, my donors are lovely.
Oh,
right?
of course. Of course.
They're nice people. So it's really not, I have with these guys, with my major donors, I have personal relationships. They're not friends, but we've grown over the years. They know me well and I know them fairly well. So it's not quite that awkward, but it is. I would never ask money for myself. Never ever.
Right.
I would ask
Right.
anybody, right? I would figure it out. But the animals is a different scenario, right? And I want them to get the best care possible. And so we have to make that happen. And this is part of my job, I guess, that I signed up for.
I guess she says. You mentioned kind of when you were picking the right property and everything, you kind of had to make those considerations for your family and what they needed. So do you have a lot of friends and family involved? Like, what was that process like? Are some people on board? Do some people think you're crazy? Maybe a little bit of both?
Probably. So I don't have tons of family involved. My family supports me, but that's not their gig. And they let me know. I had at the beginning, as a starting point, I had a couple of friends being on the board to get the baby off rolling, but they're not anymore. Most of my friends from, when we started this, we're not super friends anymore. And it's not, I don't think it has to do with what I'm doing, but I'm super busy and they're not in this world, right? They're not interested in plant-based living and saving animals, right? And I would probably think that they think I'm nuts.
Oh, tons of people think I'm nuts. Tons.
It's like, why would you do this to yourself, right? Why would you choose that? And I ask myself that question. Why am I doing this to me? But then, I get to hang out. I get to hang out with Rosie. Like, yesterday she's our cow. And, you have to get the right moment with her in order to get some snuggle time in, because I was like, I don't know what the other sanctuaries do. Their cows, they seem so docile and loving. Mine just wants to hump you.
You're like, this isn't the sweet videos I saw on the internet of rescuing cows.
No, not at all. But when she has her sweet moments, like yesterday, she was sitting down and I could sneak up on her, and then I was brushing her for like 15 minutes, and she was
Oh,
licking me and putting her head on my shoulder, and I was like, yeah, this is why I'm doing this,
yeah.
right? Or when you see an animal transform. We got a pig last year in October that was supposed to be a hog roast at a church event. The hog roast was canceled, and there was a vegan family that was determined to save this.
A hog roast
And
at a church?
yep.
Blah. Okay.
So they got the pig, and she came here and terrified, terror in her eyes. She had like
Mm.
beating wounds on her back. She wouldn't walk. We had to literally drag her out on a tarp from the U-Haul into her area, and then she just flatlined there. Super docile, to be honest, but you could see the terror in her eyes. And our pigs are all like 4-H
Mm.
pigs and some strays and owner surrenders.
Mm-hmm.
So while they have a huge range of emotions, where some were really depressed, they were not terrorized.
Yeah.
They didn't seem afraid of humans or fearful, but she was. And I was like sitting there, I was like, I don't know how to get this pig rehabilitated. I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't know, this pig will ever
Trauma.
recover
Ugh.
from the trauma. And, I look at her now. She's right in your business when we're feeding. She's almost taking you out. Um, no sense of personal space.
She's living her
You
best
can,
life now.
yes, you can snatch the best pictures of her. She's just a
Yes.
rascal, but in a loving way. She has no mean bone in her body. She's the one pig where it's like, she will never bite.
Mm.
I just, there are others I'm like, yeah, you will, but I'm like, she will not snap or bite,
Mm.
never. And just living the life. And, these are the transformations where it's like, this is why we're doing this, right?
Yeah.
We cannot save them all, and we cannot save everyone we wanted to, because we're limited in funding, manpower, volunteers,
Right.
you name it, space right now. For this animal, for Juniper, it made a huge of a difference.
Yeah. That's got to be the motivating reminder when you have stories like that. Also, Juniper's such a cute name. I
She's
love it.
cute.
Is there anything that you want to share with listeners that you haven't gotten space to or that you wanted to talk about?
A couple things. If you have
Yeah.
spare time, right, go and come and volunteer at sanctuaries. We
Mm.
can use any help and hands on deck. And that's not just for me. I think every one of my colleagues I'm speaking to, we're struggling with just having the right people and enough people to do the work we're doing, right? And I hear so often people telling me, oh, I want to start a sanctuary. And I was like, why would you want to start a sanctuary? Here are positions within that need to be filled, right? In the board as a volunteer, it's like, go and help a sanctuary,
Yeah.
because that is where you really get the scope how this is going to pan out, what is
Right.
required. You can learn so much. And we can't grow as sanctuaries if we don't get the people that help us and support us, either financially with their manpower or their skills.
Right.
So why would you start a new one? Go and bring yourself in. I would be thrilled if I would have like a couple people that are like, and off we go, and we're going for it, so I can grow the organization even
Yeah.
more, right? So I'm like, this is, if you're planning to get your sanctuary or do something else, like, go and find a sanctuary I don't know anybody of my colleagues or myself who turn a person away who's like, I want to make this baby even bigger, right? Or better.
Yeah.
So I think these would be my only kind of finalizing words.
No, that's so great because, I think that when you're in this world, when you're vegan, not just for health, but for the animals, for the environment, there's so many, you look around and you're like, I want to save everything. I need to do everything right now. So it's like, I want to start a rescue. I want to start this or I want to start that because you have all this passion. But I love that advice to be like, okay, go to those places, one, that already need help to survive and grow, and two, to learn what it's really like and what that
Yeah,
process is. And you'll be more successful if you do start your own someday, I imagine.
true. It's like there are many aspects that I didn't think they would be as they are, right?
Right,
I work 4 jobs for free or 5 sometimes, right? It's like, can you really do this? What
right,
can you do when you have a job and you want to do this, right? Be realistic. And I think you can learn a lot when you dive into the sanctuary world in regards of, even if it's just the caretaking part, what goes into
right,
caretaking. But, I have like, I don't know, I need 10 more people in my board. This is an opportunity for people to really get involved. And we are a working board, we're not a governing board. So the people
mm,
that come onto our board, they're required to put hours in and to be a part of the organization. So you can shape an organization right there without, having to have funding to do this. If I
right,
would not have had funding in the first 2 years, I'm like, I would not be able to do this work or would not have been able to sustain here. Right. But I
right.
had funding that I could push into here. But there's so many pieces, right, that go into that. And it's not all glamorous and glorious. You're not doing this to get rich or famous or whatever, right? It is hard. I'm like, there's so many pieces of this work where I'm like, I wouldn't do it anyway different, but it's
Mm-hmm.
hard. When I have to put down an animal, I'm like, it is hard. It's like
Yeah,
losing my own personal pet, right?
yeah,
And sometimes you try everything to save them and you're not successful. It's like, while I've dealt with death with my
mm,
personal pets, right? And that is hard. You have a very different frequency when you run a sanctuary.
yeah.
It feels like there's always somebody dying. And it's not, that my animals drop dead,
No,
but some some of some of them age out, right?
yeah. And you're
The
getting animals
birds,
that maybe weren't super healthy when they got to you, I imagine.
yes, we have that too, right? And you try the best you can. And I
Right.
was fairly successful to keep some of them really stable for 3 years, right? And I'm like, I thought I had to put this one down much earlier, but then he was doing so well. And then all of a sudden they crash, and you were like, what's happening, right?
Mm.
And for me, my special needs are kind of my babies where I'm getting more attached because I put more in. Sounds kind of weird, but
Well, they require a
it's
little
like
bit
you spend
different
a lot of time.
care.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do. And I bond over that part because I have a nick for special needs. And so it's really hard when you lose them, right? We lost last
Mm.
year, we lost 3 of my favorite special needs animals. And
Oh,
it's like, how do you cope? Right? Because life goes on. You don't get a break here. You have to keep going because,
yeah.
they still need food, water, money, and all of that stuff. And so there are a lot of aspects that, you don't think about it when you're not in the middle of it, right? So yeah, and it's just I'm like, you, that's my advice. I'm like, it's not really. We don't need another sanctuary per se to start up. I was like, if you have resources, man, combine them. You can
Yes.
help, make an organization better and bigger and bring yourself in versus building a new one from scratch, which is really, really hard.
That's such
So
good advice. And I
that,
think just
yeah,
in general, the reminder that You don't have to, what's the saying? You don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are places out there for you to use that passion without actually making it harder on yourself.
Yep.
And you can do a lot of good. I so appreciate that reminder in general, but specifically with rescues. Thanks for listening to another episode of Consciously Clueless. If you're enjoying this podcast, please subscribe, share with your friends, put it on social media. Don't forget to tag me. If you're on Apple Podcasts or Good Pods, leave a review. Reviews and shares help more people to see the podcast and join in on the fun. If you want to make sure to stay up to date on future episodes, follow me at Consciously Carly on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, or Pinterest, and head to consciouslycarly.com to sign up for the newsletter. Ready for more conscious living content? Check out patreon.com/consciouslycarly and join the exclusive community over there. And finally, if you're ready to take better care of yourself and the world, let's work together. Click the link in the show notes to head to the website, find out more, and schedule a free discovery call with me. Chat soon!